Good afternoon. Glad that you've chosen to spend some time studying the Bible with us today. Today we're looking at Mark chapter 3, verses 7 through 19. Jesus withdrew with his disciples to the sea, and a great crowd followed from Galilee and Judea and Jerusalem and Idumea, and from beyond the Jordan and from around Tyre and Sidon. When the great crowd heard all that he was doing, they came to him, and he told his disciples to have a boat ready for him because of the crowd, lest they crush him. For he had healed many, so that all who had diseases pressed around him to touch him. And whenever the unclean spirits saw him, they fell down before him and cried out, "You are the Son of God." And he strictly ordered them not to make it known. And he went up on the mountain and called to him those whom he had desired. And they came to him, and he appointed 12, whom he also named apostles, so that they might be with him, and he might send them out to preach, and have authority to cast out demons. He appointed the 12, Simon, to whom he gave the name Peter, James, the son of Zebedee, and John, the brother of James, to whom he gave the name Boanerges, that is, sons of thunder, Andrew and Philip, and Bartholomew, and Matthew, and Thomas, and James the son of Alphaeus, and Thaddeus, and Simon the Zealot, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him. So in this passage, Mark is continuing this narrative of Jesus, and we see that Jesus, his attraction has gone way up, and so now he's attracting so many people, such a big crowd, that he's concerned. I don't know if you'd say he's concerned for his safety, but he's concerned that they're just so many that they're going to crush him. So he's like, get a boat ready in case he has to go out onto the boat. Also, we see that the crowds are coming from not just, the area around the Jordan, like John's baptisms attracted. But no, Jesus' reach is far wider, even into Gentile territory with Tyre and Sidon. And so we see this attraction of people to Jesus. And why were they attracted? What was the primary reason? You might like to say that it's because he was such a great teacher. They were just hungry to learn. You might say it's because he was a great preacher and they were hungry to hear the gospel. I'm sure some of that was true. But it tells us in verse 8, when the great crowd heard all that he was doing, they came to him. In a world where there was no such thing as a hospital, doctors were few and far between and of questionable efficacy, there were still people that had problems, and they came to him with their problems. And so they were eager to see him heal them, their loved ones. Maybe, they didn't have anything, but they wanted to watch what he would do with other people. And so he was doing those things. Now, he was also teaching and preaching, of course, but he was doing this healing ministry. And it's interesting that when he was busy doing his spiritual work, that's when demonic oppression showed up. The demons came, and Jesus cast many demons out of people. And another thing that Mark tells us there is, the Pharisees, the scribes, the religious leaders, they couldn't quite figure out who Jesus was. But the demons know right away. No, you're the Son of God. And Jesus tells them not to tell that. He tells them to keep quiet, not because it's wrong, not because he was humble, but because it wasn't time yet for that to be the message. There would come a time, and then Jesus would just have open declaration, but that's just not the time yet. And then Jesus calls the 12 apostles. Now, to understand fully the reaction of the crowd to this, or what it would have been, we need to go back a little bit. In fact, we need to go back a lot, all the way to 1 Samuel, where we find David becoming the king. David was the king of Israel, and he was the king by which all kings are measured. And his son Solomon stepped up from David and had this great peacetime kingdom where it was just bigger and bigger and bigger. And all 12 tribes were living in unity, and it's like everything firing on all cylinders. There was just a time of unbelievable prosperity. And then Solomon's son came along when he was no longer the king, Solomon's son Rehoboam, and was unwise, and the kingdom split into two. So you had the northern kingdom, thereafter referred to as Israel, and that was 10 tribes. And you had the southern kingdom, thereafter referred to as Judah, which was just 2 tribes, Judah and Benjamin. Well, the book of 1st, 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, they all detail all the stories of the northern and southern kingdoms. There were good kings and bad kings in Judah. There were only bad kings in Israel. But in time, the kingdoms, both of them, were carried away into exile. Assyria conquered the northern tribes and were taken away. Babylon conquered the southern tribes. But in time, the southern tribes, those 2, they came back. The northern ones never did. And that's where we get this idea of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. And it was a dream and a prayer of the ones that came back, the ones that form basically the ancestors now of modern day Israel, but also of gospel era Israel. It was their dream that someday the kingdom would be reunited. And for that reuniting to occur, that meant 10 tribes would come back, added to the 2 that were there for the original total of 12. So when Jesus starts setting up his kingdom, so to speak, he picks 12 apostles. That would have caught their attention very quickly as a sign of restoration, that this is the answer that they've been praying for. And there would have been a lot of excitement about that. And it also would have caught the attention of those that were not fans of Jesus and were concerned about how what he was doing was going to affect them and their power structure and what Rome would think about it. But that's why Jesus picks 12. Now, we need to remember that when he picks those 12, we can learn something from this. Jesus called the 12. Now, he's not still calling apostles that have the same sort of ministry that the original 12 did, but he is still calling people to himself. He calls all men to himself. And when we answer his call, when we come to him for forgiveness of sin and salvation, he has the same sort of call for us as he does for them. It's a threefold call. He calls the apostles and he calls us to be with him. We need to fellowship with him. We need to sit at his feet and learn. We need to worship him. All those kinds of things we do in church and privately on our own too. The second thing he called them to do, but he still calls us to do, is go out and preach. Now you might say, no, they're preachers. You're a preacher. You preach, but I don't preach. Well, in the sense of a classical style sermon standing behind a pulpit, yes, most of us don't do that. But in the sense that we have a message to share, we all should be preaching. And the third thing he called the apostles to do, that he still calls all of us to do as well, will come up if we're effectively doing the first 2. If we're staying with Jesus, if we're abiding with him, if we're living in fellowship with him, and we lean into his call to go into all the world to make disciples, and we want to share and we want to be a witness for him, then we can count on doing the third thing, which is engaging in spiritual warfare. We may not ever cast out a demon, but we will engage in spiritual warfare if we're living for Jesus, because the enemy will decide that is going to happen. The enemy will come against us, and so we must put on the armor of God and stand against him with the sword of the Spirit, as we could read in Ephesians. Well, I hope you're having a great day today. I hope that you're staying in the Word. As always, if you have a comment or a prayer request or anything like that, feel free to reach out. And otherwise, I will see you again on Saturday. God bless.